At work, you're the calm one, the one who stays composed in the meeting that's going sideways, who picks her words carefully, who somehow always sounds like she has it together. And then you get home, close the door, and within 10 minutes, you're snapping at your partner over something as small as a dish left in the sink. Or maybe it's the opposite. At work, you're sharp, assertive, the person who pushes back in meetings without blinking. And at home, you go quiet. You let people walk all over small decisions you'd never let slide at your desk. Either way, someone who only knew you in one of those two worlds would swear they were meeting a completely different person. And you've probably wondered quietly which one is actually you. Here's the answer nobody tells you: they both are. You're not faking one of them. You're not being fake at all. What you're doing has an actual name in psychology, and once you understand it, the whole thing stops feeling like a personal failing and starts making a lot more sense. Psychologists call it role-based personality expression. And the foundation for it comes from sociologist Erving Goffman, who described social life using a theater metaphor. We all have a front stage self, the version we present when we know we're being watched and evaluated. And a backstage self, the version that shows up when the performance is over and no one's grading us anymore. Work is almost always front stage. There are rules, hierarchies, consequences for saying the wrong thing. Home is backstage. It's where the mask comes off for better and for worse. Personality researchers have also found that traits like conscientiousness and agreeableness actually fluctuate depending on context. This is sometimes called trait activation theory, and it argues that your personality isn't one fixed thing, but more like a set of dials. And different environments turn different dials up or down. Work turns up the dials that keep you safe and employed. Home turns them back down because it doesn't have to keep them up. Let's break down what's actually happening in each version of you. The first thing is what we can call the performance tax. At work, you are, in a very real sense, being evaluated constantly. By your boss, your coworkers, sometimes even by clients you'll never meet again. That constant low-level evaluation requires energy, the same way holding your arm up for 8 hours would require energy, even if the object in your hand is small. Psychologists call this self-monitoring, consciously managing how you come across in real time. High self-monitors are especially good at reading a room and adjusting their behavior to fit it, which makes them excellent at work, where fitting in and reading the politics correctly can directly affect your paycheck. But self-monitoring is exhausting. It's a second job running quietly underneath your actual job. And when you finally get home, that muscle simply gives out. Snapping at your partner over a dish isn't really about the dish. It's the moment the self-monitoring system finally clocks out for the day, sometimes without warning. The second thing is what researchers call ego depletion. And it explains why the person who is so patient with a difficult client at 2 p.m. can have almost no patience left for their own kid by 6 p.m. Self-control functions something like a muscle. The more you use it throughout the day, holding back reactions, choosing diplomatic words, managing your face when you're annoyed, the less of it you have left by evening. This is why you can be so composed handling an actual crisis at work, and then completely fall apart over a text message that took too long to get a reply. It was never about the size of the problem. It was about how much self-control you had left in the tank by the time the problem showed up. The third thing is psychological safety, and this is where things flip in the other direction. If you're the version of yourself who is quiet and agreeable at work, but sharp and assertive at home, it's not because home is where you let your worst side out. It's because psychological safety, the belief that you can express an opinion or make a mistake without facing serious consequences, is usually much higher at home than at work. Research by organizational psychologist Amy Edmondson found that people are far more willing to speak up, disagree, and take interpersonal risks in environments where they trust the relationship can survive the friction. At work, that trust is often uncertain, especially with people you haven't known long or who have power over your job. At home, with people who have already seen you at your worst and stayed, disagreement feels less dangerous. So you use your voice more because you finally can. The fourth thing is identity compartmentalization. And this one is less about energy and more about who each environment actually needs you to be. Work needs professional you, organized, articulate, emotionally regulated, focused on outcomes. Home needs a completely different set of things: comfort, vulnerability, sometimes just the ability to fall apart without an audience of coworkers watching. These aren't contradictory identities. They're context-specific versions of the same person, shaped by what each environment is actually asking of you. The professional handling a client crisis, and the person crying at home over something objectively smaller than that crisis are not in conflict. They're both accurately responding to what their environment allows and requires. Now here's the honest part. This split isn't free. If the gap between your work self and your home self gets too wide, it starts to feel less like adapting and more like living two separate lives that never get to meet. Some people describe this as feeling like a fraud in one version or the other. Not sure which one is the real them, exhausted by the constant switching. Sometimes resentful that the people at home get the tired, depleted leftovers, while the people at work get the composed, capable best of you. That gap, left unexamined, is one of the quiet reasons burnout happens even in jobs that look manageable on paper. It's not just the workload. It's the cost of running two operating systems and never getting a real break from either. But here's the reframe. Having different personalities in different contexts isn't proof that you're inauthentic. It's actually proof that you're socially intelligent, capable of reading an environment accurately and adjusting to meet it, which is one of the most sophisticated things a human brain does. The goal was never to become one flat, identical version of yourself everywhere. The goal is making sure both versions are ones you'd actually choose, not just the ones each environment forced out of you by default. That might mean bringing a little more of your work self boundaries home, so you're not endlessly agreeable with people who matter most. It might mean bringing a little more of your home self honesty to work, so the performance doesn't cost quite so much. You don't need one personality. You need both of yours to be ones you actually respect. You are not the calm one who's secretly a mess. And you are not the mess who's secretly faking calm. You're a person who reads rooms well enough to know what each one needs from you. And that's not a flaw to fix. That's a skill most people never even notice they have. If this finally explained why you feel like two different people depending on which door you walk through, you're not the only one. Hit subscribe. There's a lot more about how your mind adapts waiting to be explained.